You walk into a marble bank lobby holding a legal withdrawal slip. The teller's eyes go wide with panic. Sirens scream closer. Within minutes, you're on your knees in handcuffs, humiliated in front of strangers filming on their phones. But the two officers cuffing you have no idea who they just grabbed. He isn't a con man. He isn't a threat. He is the president's lead Secret Service agent, and he's about to ruin their entire careers. Adrien Cole was exhausted, the kind of bone-deep fatigue that only comes after a job well done. At 42, he was a 20-year veteran of federal law enforcement, the last decade spent on the Presidential Protective Division of the United States Secret Service. He had spent the last 72 hours awake, coordinating security for a diplomatic summit in Geneva. Now, finally back on American soil and off-duty, all he wanted was to close on his dream home in the quiet, affluent suburb of Oak Brook, Illinois. It was a crisp Tuesday morning. Adrien had dressed for comfort, a faded navy blue Georgetown University hoodie, dark athletic sweatpants, and worn running shoes. He didn't look like a man who stood inches behind the commander-in-chief. He looked like any other guy running errands on a day off, but as a 6'2" black man walking into the pristine, marble-floored lobby of Heritage Trust Bank, his casual attire was about to become a dangerous liability in the eyes of the staff. The bank was quiet, save for the hum of air conditioning and the click of keyboards. Adrien approached the teller window, pulled a withdrawal slip from his pocket, and slid it across the counter with his Illinois driver's license. "Good morning," he said, his voice a calm, practiced baritone. "I need a cashier's check for $85,000. It's for a house closing this afternoon." The teller, her name tag read Patricia, glanced at the slip, then the amount, then up at Adrien. Her warm smile, the one she'd worn for the elderly woman before him, stiffened instantly into something tight and suspicious. $85,000, Patricia repeated, her voice dropping, laced with a skepticism she didn't bother to hide. "Yes, ma'am," Adrien replied politely. He knew the drill. Large transactions came with protocols, a few questions, a short delay. What he hadn't expected was the sheer hostility radiating from her side of the glass. Patricia began typing furiously, her eyes darting between the screen and Adrien. "Mr. Cole, this is a very substantial withdrawal. Can I ask the source of these funds?" "It's a combination of personal savings and proceeds from the sale of my previous property in Virginia," Adrien explained patiently. "The wire cleared 4 days ago. You should see the deposit history." Patricia didn't nod. She kept typing. "And what exactly do you do for a living, Mr. Cole?" Adrien kept his expression neutral, though his tactical mind was already registering the shift in the room. "I work for the federal government." "The government?" she echoed dryly. She picked up his ID and stood. "I'm going to need my branch manager to authorize a transaction of this size. Wait right here." She didn't ask, she commanded. Adrien watched her walk to a glass-walled office in the corner, where a man in his late 50s sat in a sharply tailored gray suit. This was Caleb Caldwell, the branch manager. Patricia leaned in, speaking quietly but urgently, throwing nervous glances back at Adrien. Caldwell's eyes locked onto him. His face tightened. He didn't glance at a computer screen to verify the account. He just stared at Adrien. 20 years in federal law enforcement had taught Adrien to read a room. He knew what a real threat looked like, and he knew what fear looked like. Right now, he was watching two people manufacture a threat out of their own prejudice. Caldwell picked up his desk phone. He didn't dial the bank's authorization center. He dialed 3 digits, 911. Adrien sighed, shifting his weight. Here we go, he thought. He could have walked out. He could have flashed his credentials right then and shut the entire spectacle down. But Adrien was a man of principle. He was a citizen trying to access his own legally obtained money. He hadn't done anything wrong, and he refused to use a federal badge to bypass a situation any ordinary citizen would be forced to endure. He wanted to see with his own eyes exactly how Heritage Trust Bank treated its customers. 10 minutes passed. The lobby stayed eerily quiet. Caldwell finally emerged, walking to the teller station with a practiced, hollow smile. "Mr. Cole," he said, his tone dripping with condescension, "we're running a routine security check on the account. Given the unusual nature of this request, it takes a bit of time. There's nothing unusual about withdrawing my own money, Mr. Caldwell, Adrien said, his voice even, revealing none of his growing frustration. The funds are fully settled. I have my ID, my debit card, and my social security number for verification. What exactly seems to be the issue? It's just bank policy, Caldwell deflected, his eyes darting nervously toward the front doors. We have to protect our clients from fraudulent activity. Protect our clients, Adrien thought. You don't think I'm the client, you think I'm the fraud. I understand protocol, Adrien replied, leaning slightly against the counter, keeping his hands fully visible, a habit ingrained in him for survival. But I have a closing at 2 o'clock. I'd appreciate it if we could expedite the verification. Caldwell took a step back, maintaining a defensive distance. We're moving as fast as we can, sir. I'm going to ask you to step back from the counter and have a seat in the waiting area. It wasn't a request. It was an attempt to manage what Caldwell perceived as a threat. Adrien looked at the manager, then at Patricia, who was staring at her keyboard, avoiding eye contact. I'll stand, Adrien said calmly. Thank you. A moment later, the heavy glass doors swung open. The rhythmic thud of combat boots echoed across the marble floor. Adrien didn't need to turn around to know who had arrived. The local police were here. Officers Greg Miller and Thomas Jenkins of the Oak Brook Police Department entered the bank with the kind of urgent, aggressive energy reserved for an active robbery. Miller, the younger of the two, was red in the face, his hand resting instinctively on the butt of his weapon. Jenkins, heavier and older, flanked him, thumbs tucked into his belt. Officers, thank God, Caldwell called out, his voice pitching an octave higher in feigned distress. He pointed a trembling finger at Adrien. That's him. He's been demanding an $85,000 withdrawal. His ID looks fake, and he's refusing to leave. Adrien slowly turned to face the officers, making sure both hands were completely empty, held away from his body at waist height. He knew the statistics. He knew how quickly movements were misinterpreted. In his line of work, he neutralized threats. Today, he was being treated as one. Sir, step away from the counter, Officer Miller barked, closing the distance rapidly. I am the account holder, Adrien stated, his voice projecting clearly across the lobby, calm and authoritative. My name is Adrien Cole. I am attempting to complete a legal transaction. My verified identification is sitting on that counter. I said, step away from the counter and put your hands behind your back, Miller yelled, his adrenaline clearly spiking. Jenkins moved in from the left. Don't make this difficult, buddy. Do what the officer says. Adrien took a single slow step back. Officers, I am fully cooperating, but before you proceed, I need to inform you that I am a federal. Shut your mouth, Miller interrupted, grabbing Adrien's right arm with excessive force, twisting it behind his back. Adrien's instincts screamed at him to break the hold. With his close-quarters combat training, it would take exactly 2 seconds to disarm the young officer and put him on the ground. But he forced his body to stay entirely limp. He allowed Miller to yank his arm up at an uncomfortable angle. Officer, Adrien said, gritting his teeth slightly against the joint manipulation, you are making a significant mistake. I strongly advise you to listen to me. The only one making a mistake is you, coming into this town thinking you could pull off a scam like this. Jenkins sneered, grabbing Adrien's left arm and slapping a cold pair of steel handcuffs around his wrists. The ratcheting sound of the cuffs locking into place echoed loudly in the now dead-silent bank. The few customers in the lobby watched in stunned silence. Some pulled out their phones, hitting record. Spread your legs, Miller ordered, kicking the inside of Adrien's ankle hard enough to bruise. Adrien complied, staring straight ahead at Caldwell, who looked incredibly smug. Enjoy the moment, Caleb, Adrien thought coldly. It's going to be your last day in finance. Miller began a rapid, aggressive pat-down, running his hands down Adrien's sides, checking his pockets. You got any needles on you? Any weapons? He asked rhetorically. Then Miller's hand brushed against Adrien's right hip. Underneath the oversized hoodie, he felt the hard, unmistakable shape of a specialized holster. Miller jumped back as if he'd been burned, his hand flying to his own weapon. Gun! He's got a gun! Jenkins, hold him! Chaos erupted. 2 bank customers screamed. Patricia ducked behind her station. Jenkins shoved Adrien violently, face first against the marble wall, pressing his forearm into the back of Adrien's neck. "Don't move! Do not move!" Jenkins roared, his previous calm vanishing into sheer panic. Adrien's face was pressed against the cold stone, but his voice remained perfectly steady, cutting through the hysteria like a knife. "It's a Sig Sauer P300. It's holstered. My hands are cuffed behind my back. I am not a threat." Miller, breathing heavily, reached under the hoodie and yanked the firearm free. He stepped back, holding it up. "Got it! Suspect is disarmed! Listen to me very carefully," Adrien said, his tone no longer polite, shifting into the commanding cadence of a man who gave orders to tactical assault teams. "In the inside left breast pocket of my hoodie, there is a black leather case. Officer Jenkins, I want you to reach in and pull it out. Do it now! You don't give the orders here, scammer." Jenkins spat, pressing harder into Adrien's neck. "You're going away for a long time. Armed robbery, fraud. I didn't ask for money. I asked for a cashier's check from my own account." Adrien corrected him sharply. "And if you don't look in that pocket in the next 10 seconds, the next people coming through those doors are going to be a federal response team." The utter lack of fear in Adrien's voice finally made Jenkins pause. The suspect wasn't shaking. He wasn't crying. He wasn't acting erratic. He was speaking to them like subordinates who had just failed an inspection. Jenkins glanced at Miller. "Check his pocket." Miller holstered his own weapon, approached cautiously, and reached into the left pocket of Adrien's hoodie. His fingers closed around a heavy leather wallet. He pulled it out. "Open it," Adrien commanded. Miller flipped the case open. Inside, stamped into heavy brass, was the unmistakable gold star of the United States Secret Service, set above a federal photo identification card bearing Adrien's face. Below his name was his title, Supervisory Special Agent, Presidential Protective Division. Miller froze, all color drained from his face. He stared at the badge, then at Adrien, then back at the badge. His brain, clouded by prejudice and adrenaline, refused to compute the information. "This," Miller stammered, his voice cracking. "This is fake. It has to be fake." Adrien slowly turned his head as far as Jenkins's forearm would allow, locking eyes with the young officer. "Officer Miller," Adrien said softly, the quiet intensity of his voice carrying more danger than a scream. "If you think that badge is fake, I invite you to call the field office in Chicago. The number is on the back of the ID. But before you do, you should know that my biometrics are linked to that firearm you just unholstered. The moment it was removed from my person without my thumbprint on the retention mechanism, a silent distress signal was sent to the local field office. You have about 3 minutes before this bank is swarming with federal agents. Now take these cuffs off me." Officer Jenkins froze. The heavy, oppressive weight he'd been applying to the back of Adrien's neck instantly vanished. He took a stumbling step backward, his eyes wide and locked onto the gold star glinting under the fluorescent lights. The silence in the Heritage Trust lobby was absolute, broken only by the ragged breathing of Officer Miller, who was still holding the Secret Service credentials as if they were a live grenade. "Take the cuffs off," Adrien repeated, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. The sheer gravity of his command sent a physical shudder through both officers. Miller stuttered, fumbling for his cuff keys. His hands shook so violently, he dropped the small silver key onto the marble floor. It landed with a sharp clink. "Miller, what are you doing?" Caleb Caldwell hissed from his safe distance near the teller counter, oblivious to the reality of the situation. "Get him out of here. He's obviously lying." Adrien slowly stood up straight, turning to face Caldwell while Miller scrambled on the floor for the key. "Mr. Caldwell," Adrien said, his eyes drilling into the branch manager, "you are about to have the worst Tuesday of your adult life." Before Caldwell could fire back an arrogant retort, the front glass windows of the bank vibrated violently. The deep, guttural roar of high-performance engines shattered the quiet of the Oakbrook suburb. Through the plate glass windows, Caldwell, Patricia, and the stunned customers watched as 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans jumped the curb, coming to a screeching, aggressive halt directly in front of the bank's main entrance. No light bars, just flashing red and blue strobes embedded in the grills. The doors flew open in perfect, terrifying synchronization. Heavily armed men and women in dark tactical vests, Use Polis, emblazoned in bright yellow lettering, poured out, moving with the lethal precision of operators who guarded the highest office in the land. Federal agents. Nobody move. A voice boomed as the heavy bank doors were thrown open. Leading the charge was Special Agent Robert Higgins, a barrel-chested man who had served alongside Adrien for 6 years. Higgins swept the room with an M4 carbine lowered at the ready, his gaze locking onto the 2 local cops, then onto Adrien, who was still in handcuffs. Higgins's face morphed from professional intensity into absolute, murderous fury. "Drop the weapon," Higgins roared at Miller, who was still holding Adrien's unholstered Sig Sauer. "Drop it now, or I will put you down." Miller shrieked, tossing the firearm onto the floor and throwing his hands so high into the air he nearly pulled a muscle. Jenkins pressed himself against the wall, hands up, face drained of all blood. Within seconds, 4 Secret Service agents swarmed the 2 local officers, kicking their legs apart, stripping them of their duty belts, and forcing them to their knees. Aged Higgins marched directly up to Adrien, holstered his sidearm, and pulled out his own set of keys. "Dave, you good?" he asked, his voice tight with barely controlled rage as he unlocked the steel cuffs. Adrien rubbed his wrists, his face a mask of calm professionalism. "I'm fine, Bobby." The response time was solid, 3 minutes flat from the holster distress signal. "We were at the Chicago field office processing the Geneva Summit paperwork when the alarm hit the system," Higgins explained, eyeing the 2 terrified officers kneeling on the floor. "We thought you were taking fire, Dave." "What the hell is this?" Adrien turned slowly, pointing first at Officer Jenkins, then at Officer Miller. "Unlawful detention, aggravated assault, civil rights violations, illegal seizure of a federal firearm." He turned toward the glass-walled office, pointing directly at Caleb Caldwell, and him, filing a false police report, and quite possibly wire fraud. Caldwell's smugness completely evaporated. He looked like a man who had just watched his own obituary print out on a ticker tape. "Wire fraud?" he squeaked, his voice cracking. I was just following security protocols." He looked suspicious. Adrien walked over to his firearm, which an agent had cleared and placed on a side table. He seamlessly reholstered it, sliding the leather badge case back into his hoodie. He walked slowly toward the teller counter, stopping inches from the glass. Patricia was openly sobbing. "Suspicious," Adrien repeated, savoring the word. "I am a 20-year veteran of the United States Secret Service. I possess a top-secret clearance. I guard the President of the United States. But I walk into your bank wearing a hoodie to access my own legally deposited funds, and you bypass your own corporate authorization center to call 911. It was a large amount of..." Caldwell pleaded, stepping backward. "You can't arrest me for making a mistake." "Actually, Mr. Caldwell, the Secret Service doesn't just protect the president," Adrien said, a dangerous, knowing smile finally touching his lips. "We are the primary federal agency responsible for safeguarding the nation's financial infrastructure. Bank fraud is our literal jurisdiction. And while I was standing here letting your officers abuse me, I had a lot of time to think about why you were so desperate to stop me from withdrawing $85,000 of fully cleared funds." Adrien turned to Higgins. "Bobby, I want a federal freeze on this branch's operations immediately. Get Agent O'Connor from the Cyber Fraud Division on the line. I want a full forensic audit of Caleb Caldwell's local ledger." Caldwell's knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of Patricia's desk to keep from collapsing. The sheer panic in his eyes confirmed Adrien's tactical hunch. The twist wasn't just that Caldwell was a racist. Caldwell was a thief. As a veteran investigator, Adrien knew that banking systems were automated. When an $85,000 wire transfer cleared from a title company, as his had, from the sale of his Virginia property, the liquidity was guaranteed by the Federal Reserve. There was no mechanical reason for a branch manager to intervene, unless the branch's local cash reserves were inexplicably short, or unless the manager was manually floating large client deposits to cover bad bets elsewhere. Caldwell had been using the classic security hold excuse as a smokescreen. He routinely profiled clients he believed lacked the legal resources to fight back, specifically minorities and the elderly, flagging their large transfers for fraud review. While the funds sat in bureaucratic limbo, Caldwell was siphoning the interest and temporarily redirecting the principal into a shadow account to cover his own illicit options trading. When a black man in sweatpants asked for $85,000, Caldwell thought he had an easy mark. He assumed he could intimidate Adrien, delay the withdrawal by a week, and use the cash flow. He assumed wrong. Within 30 minutes, the bank lobby had become a makeshift federal command post. The local Oakbrook chief of police, William Bradley, arrived on the scene, practically sprinting through the doors. When he saw his 2 officers disarmed and sitting on the floor, surrounded by heavily armed federal agents, and recognized Adrien's credentials, Chief Bradley looked physically ill. "Agent Cole," Chief Bradley began, sweating profusely, extending a trembling hand. "Words cannot express the profound apology I owe you on behalf of my department. These officers acted completely outside of our training and policy." Adrien didn't take the hand. He looked down at Miller and Jenkins. "Your officers didn't ask for my name. They didn't verify my ID, which was sitting in plain sight on the counter. They escalated immediately to physical violence and drew a weapon on an unarmed, compliant citizen because of the color of his skin. If I wasn't carrying a federal badge today, Chief Bradley, I would either be in a jail cell right now or the morgue." Chief Bradley swallowed hard, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket to wipe his forehead. "They're stripped of their police powers, effective immediately. They'll be suspended without pay, pending a full Internal Affairs and Department of Justice civil rights investigation. I swear to you, Agent Cole, this will be handled." "Oh, I know it will be handled," Adrien said coldly. "Because the DOJ Civil Rights Division is already on their way. You can give them your statement when they arrive." Across the lobby, Agent O'Connor's voice rang out from the manager's office. She had plugged her federal decryption terminal directly into Caldwell's workstation. "Agent Cole, you're going to want to see this. He's got dummy accounts. He's been floating deposits for months. We've got over $3 million in unauthorized redirects." Caleb Caldwell sat in a rolling office chair, crying into his hands as Agent Higgins zip-tied his wrists. Caleb Caldwell. Higgins read the Miranda warning from memory, his voice booming over the sound of Caldwell's sobbing. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Adrien watched the scene unfold, the tension finally leaving his shoulders. The fatigue of the Geneva summit was catching up to him, but a profound sense of justice anchored him. He walked back to the teller counter. Patricia was still sitting there, terrified, refusing to look at him. "Patricia," Adrien said gently. She flinched, finally looking up, her mascara running down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. He told me to flag you. I should have just processed the check. You have a choice in this world about who you take orders from when you know those orders are wrong," Adrien said, his tone devoid of anger but heavy with truth. "Do better." He reached across the counter, picked up his Illinois driver's license and slid it into his pocket. 10 minutes later, the regional vice president of Heritage Trust Bank arrived, escorted by federal agents. Sweating and stammering, he personally printed the cashier's check for $85,000, waiving every conceivable fee, and handed it to Adrien with trembling hands. Adrien walked out of the bank into the bright afternoon sun. The 3 black Suburbans were still idling, securing the perimeter. Higgins walked up beside him, clapping a heavy hand on his shoulder. "You still got that house closing at 2, Dave?" Higgins asked with a grin. Adrien looked at his watch. 1:15 p.m. "Yeah, Bobby, I do. Want a federal escort to the title company?" Higgins joked, nodding toward the armored SUVs. "Make sure no one else gives you a hard time about your hoodie." Adrien chuckled, a genuine smile finally breaking across his face. "No thanks. I think I've had enough drama for my day off. I'm just going to go buy my house." As Adrien Cole drove away, the flashing red and blue lights of the Oakbrook Police Department finally arrived. not to arrest a suspect, but to transport their own disgraced officers and a corrupt bank manager to federal holding. Adrien had walked into that bank a suspect. He walked out having single-handedly dismantled a multi-million-dollar fraud ring and purged a police department of its worst elements, all before closing on his dream home.